History collector, come in, I have something very important to tell. In fact, about history.
Hey friends, welcome back to Art 101. Let's get right after it. From my point of view, one of the saddest stories of an artist is that of the great artist, illustrator, and commercial artist, Norman Rockwell. From the very beginning of his life, living in the cities of New York, Norman Rockwell developed a skill and love in art. As a young man, he liked drawing warships. As he evolved into high school, he would continue to perfect his skills and take additional classes to enhance those skills. He would leave high school to attend the National Academy of Design his sophomore year and then transfer to the Art Students League the following year under the instruction of Thomas Fogarty and George Brigman. He began by illustrating children's storybooks called the Tell Me Why stories. Soon, still as a teen, he would become the art director for the Boy Scouts of America's magazine called Boy's Life, a job that he would hold for 50 years. Norman Rockwell did lots of cool stuff, but one of the really cool things that he got involved with was donating his skill to the Boy Scouts of America.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Rockwell was one of America's most beloved illustrators. With some success, he would move his studio to New Rochelle, New York, illustrating for several magazines including Life, American Magazine, Literary Digest, Country Gentleman, Popular Science, and at the age of 22, he sold his first cover to the most prestigious jewel of them all at the time, the Saturday Evening Post.
That was fascinating, but the rest of the story will have to wait because that's all the time we have!
It's very safe to say that America loved Norman Rockwell's covers of the Saturday Evening Post. Over his career, he would create 322 covers for the Saturday Evening Post. Many people saw those as a portrayal of the all-American culture. I suppose that's true if you live in an all-white town. However, in those early years, he never painted anyone outside of white America for those covers. Another little factoid on Norman Rockwell is he's often labeled as a racist because he only painted white kids and he only put white kids on the cover of magazines and whatnot. And that wasn't because of his choosing, that was because he had a publisher, he had a boss, and he wanted to put other groups and other ethnicities on the cover of these magazines, and they said, no, we cater to white people, we don't want a bunch of black kids or minority groups on the cover of these magazines. And he didn't like it. And you can see that in some of the civil rights works that he did. But I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit.
Yep.
Although Rockwell was a respected artist, he really had no pull or power when it came to anything other than making a drawing for the cover. If he chose to make a stand, they wouldn't buy his artwork and he would be out money. It's just that simple. He was making about $40,000 a year. He would make no less than that during the Great Depression. Unlike most people, he was really prospering during the 1930s. Soon he would be moving his studio to Arlington, Vermont, where he would get remarried and eventually have 3 children. It was there on May 15, 1943 that his entire studio burned to the ground, but he did rebuild. In 1953, his family would move again to Stockbridge, Massachusetts because of the declining health of his wife, Mary. After she had passed away in 1960, Norman again remarried the following year.
I thought your wife was coming tonight.
The old bat couldn't come.
Well, the rest of them sure made it.
One of the interesting things about Norman Rockwell that he was thrice married, and every single time he got married, the guy married a teacher. So I don't know what that says about teachers, marrying teachers, if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I guess that was his trend. I mean, I can't disagree with it. What do I know? I color for a living.
You snotty little bastard.
One of my favorite covers that Norman Rockwell ever produced was his triple self-portrait. This was the Saturday Evening Post cover from February 13th, 1960. As I mentioned, this oil painting is titled Triple Self-Portrait. Strangely enough, Rockwell did not really see himself as an artist, but more of a commercial illustrator. He saw his artworks as throwaway, something that was going to be disposed of. He had high aspirations for being a real artist, in his own view. In the upper right-hand corner of the easel, you see the self-portrait of artists that he had looked up to. They include Albrecht Dürer, Rembrandt van Rijn, Pablo Picasso, and Vincent van Gogh. Inside the painting, he's unveiled without his glasses on, but in the mirror, he is hiding behind those glasses. There are all sorts of subtle little details inside this painting that give us an idea of who he was, from the helmet on top of his easel to the smoke coming out of the trash can. But I think the most powerful part is that he himself does not look at us. He has his back to us. And the only way he will connect with us, the viewer, is through the art. Another sad story involves a trip that Norman Rockwell took to the studio of Rembrandt van Rijn. Norman Rockwell wanted respect as an artist, not only for himself, but also from his peers. In his later years, he took a trip out to Rembrandt van Rijn's studio. He sat there for a while inside the studio, and to himself out loud, he would say, "Rembrandt, I have always loved you and admired you. What do you think of me?" Crickets. Absolutely nothing. An American icon at the end of his career, just looking for some approval from his idol.
Are you kidding me?
Unfortunately, that's accurate, but let's take a look at how he does his work. Rockwell would typically work in the same sort of way. He would have photographs taken of models, and then from those photographs create a pencil drawing outline. The pencil drawing would then be transferred onto a canvas. The canvas would then be painted with oil, and those oil paintings would be used for the various things he was creating, from print advertising to magazine covers and various other illustrations.
How cool is that?
His third wife was very much a proponent of the civil rights movement, and as I mentioned, Rockwell was getting tired of being handcuffed by only painting one aspect of American life. So after 47 years, he would leave the Saturday Evening Post for Look magazine. This new publication would allow him to express his views for the civil rights movement and the war on poverty. He would say, "For 47 years, I portrayed the best of all possible worlds. Grandfathers, puppy dogs, things like that. That kind of stuff is dead now, and I think it's about time."
Fight the power.
Norman Rockwell became a huge advocate for the civil rights movement. One of my favorite pieces they ever created was The Problem We All Live With. This painting illustrates the true story of Ruby Bridges. In the painting, we see 6-year-old Ruby Bridges go into her first day of school at William Frantz Public Schools in New Orleans, Louisiana, escorted by United States Marshals. The painting was originally created for Look magazine as a cover and spread piece. The white community did not want her to go, or any blacks to go, to attend their white public school, but the Supreme Court said that they had to let her in. This story was big-time national news, and it very much stirred a fire under the people at Look magazine, as well as Norman Rockwell personally. His outrage inspired this work.
I was, I believe, 17 or 18 years old when I was asked to do an interview, and the reporter showed me a copy of the Norman Rockwell painting. Even though I was accustomed to looking at old magazines and Eyes on the Prize and seeing all that footage, I understood that it was important, but it didn't really hit me until I saw the Norman Rockwell painting.
As with all of Rockwell's projects, he first had to start with finding a model and deciding the outfit and the hairstyle of the little girl. Once all of those pieces were put together, the process of creating the painting could actually start.
Can you still put your head back into these
Okay,
chambers?
absolutely.
Still, you can still kind of
Definitely.
go back there.
Yes, and I do every day.
With her new shoes and dress on for her first day of school, people are throwing tomatoes at this little girl like she's some sort of an enemy. What a way to start first grade. At the school, she was taught on her own floor of the school with only one teacher who was willing to teach this little girl, completely isolated from all other classmates. Rockwell had a belief that he wanted all kids to be kids, and he enjoyed capturing that in his art, and that was robbed from this little girl.
None of us know anything about disliking one another when we come into the world. It is something that's passed on to us. So every time I see that, I think about the fact that I was an innocent child that knew absolutely nothing about what was happening that day, but that I learned a very valuable lesson, and that is that we should never look at a person and judge them by the color of their skin. That's the lesson that I learned in first grade.
You know, when I think of a regionalist painter, names like Grant Wood, Thomas Hart Benton, Andrew Wyeth all come to my mind. But I think that there's really no one out there that also exemplifies the same sort of flavor of the regionalist painters as Norman Rockwell. He's right up there with them. Hey folks, thanks a lot for clicking on the video. I really appreciate you tuning in, checking out what I have here on Art 101, again with me, Mr. Burgher. Make sure you click all the buzzers and the whistles and the doohickeys so that you can stay informed on all of the upcoming videos and content that I post on the video, and you get notifications for all that. I really appreciate your support. Until next time, we'll see you later.